Hello and welcome back. In this video, we want to start with setting up our server file. Okay, so where we set up our security middleware function, standard middleware routes, error handler, start queues. Okay, so in the source, let me create server.ts file. Okay, and what we're going to start with, remember that this service will run on port 4002. Okay, so it's going to run on port 4002. So I will start with const and server underscore port. I'll set this to 4002. And then let me create the logger. I can just copy the one we already created. Okay, now let's make the necessary import. So import from Winston, import Winston logger, and then import env right here. Okay, so this is going to be @auth. The reason why it's just showing / and not using this @auth is if you're importing files that are in the same level, okay, it's going to just import it using the dots. But if you are importing from a folder, then it's going to add this @auth. Okay, here I will change this to authentication server, or whatever information you prefer. Okay, now here we are going to use functions. We are not going to use classes. And remember, we usually create a start method. So let's go to notification right here. So we are going to create a start method right here and then export the start function. But others will just be private functions that are used only inside this file. But the start function, we are going to export it. Okay, so here I'll say export function. Okay, maybe let's try to use I'm thinking if we should use just this regular function or use a fat arrow function. Whichever one you feel like. Okay, so for now I will just use this application. Okay, import from Express. This will return void. Okay, now let's go ahead and start creating the functions that we need. We need securities middleware or security middleware. I'll call this security middleware. Okay, app of type application. This will return void. Now here we need to define our cause, some of our security middlewares as well. So first we need to set app.set. Like I said, I've explained earlier that this, you need it if you want to be able to use your endpoint once we deploy. Okay, so set proxy to 1. Okay, and then here I can say app.use. You can use the HPP. Okay, so let's see if we can auto import. Okay, then we can use helmet. Okay, so let's import as well. And then let us add cause. So app.use. Now remember, here we are not adding anything related to cookie session. Okay, because it's handled in the API gateway. Okay, so here let's just import cause. The basic idea for this cause is so that our front end and back end can communicate, because they are going to be using different origins. The front end will have a different URL, and the API gateway and also the services will have different endpoints. Okay, so we are setting up calls to allow them communicate. Without calls, if they are running on different origins, then you will not be able to communicate. Okay, so origin here, because we are not getting the request directly from our front end, so the origin here will be config.api gateway URL. So the request is coming from the API gateway. So for our auth service, the API gateway will be its client. Okay, so that is just the idea. For the auth service, the API gateway will be its client, and then for the API gateway, the front end will be its client. And then here, set credentials. I'll set it to true. Remember, in the API gateway, we said with credentials, we set it to true. Okay, we are doing the same thing here, but it's called differently. And then for the methods, I'll go ahead and add get, post, put, delete, and options. Okay, so this is what we have for our security middleware. And there's one other thing I want to do in this security middleware. Now, if you recall, I've said it multiple times that the JWT token, okay, not the gateway token, the normal JWT token, okay, that will be attached to every request that is coming from the client, that is from the front end, this JWT token. So once the request goes from our front end to API gateway, and then from API gateway to the auth service, okay, we'll check probably if we have this token. Now, the reason why we are checking for this token is because we are going to add a particular part to this service that will require the user to be logged in order for them to access it. That is to get current user. Okay, so to get the current user, the user has to be logged in. We're going to see all that. But here, I'll create a middleware. I'll say app.use. Okay, and then request of type request. Okay, import from Express. Response of type response as well. And then next of type next function. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to check if we have the token, the JWT token, in the authorization header. Okay, because when we are sending it, when we are sending from the API gateway, we are going to add to the headers a token like this. So it's going to be called bearer, and then we are going to have the JWT token, something like this. Okay, so this is what we want to check. So I will say if request.headers headers.authorization. So if we have this authorization property in the headers, then we need to get the token. So const token equal to request.headers.authorization. And remember, the token will be set this way. Okay, so what we need to do is we are going to split it using this space. Okay, so we are going to split it by this space, and then once we split, okay, once we split, we are going to have a list with bearer, okay, as the first item in the list, and then as the second item we are going to have the token. Okay, so this is going to be dot split. We want to split by space. Now if you do this, this is not going to work, okay, because here in this token we don't have they are both separated by the space. Okay, so we need to add the space here, and then we need the first item, the second item, okay, the item at index 1. So this is at index 0, this is at index 1. Okay, this is at, we get the item at index 1, and then the next thing we want to do is to verify the token. Okay, verify if it's a valid token, and then we get our payload. I think we already did that. If I check correctly, let's go to our gateway middleware. Okay, we want to do something like this. Okay, so we want to verify that the token is valid. Okay, and then if it's valid, we get our payload. So we get the verify method from JWT or JSON Web Token. Then we pass in the token, and then we pass config.jwt token, and you can add this symbol here. We need to cast as IAuth payload. Okay, yeah, you can do the same thing here if you want. And remember, once we get our payload, we need to set it to current dot or request.current user equal to payload. Okay, and then outside of this, here we are going to use next. Here we can use underscore because we don't need it anymore. I can remove this, I already explained. So with this right here, every request that is coming from the API gateway, we are going to check in the authorization header if we have a token. Okay, if we have the bearer token, if the authorization doesn't exist, then it's going to throw an error. The request will not be allowed. Okay, otherwise we get the request, verify the payload, and then set the payload to current user. Okay, so we have our security middleware. In the next video, we are going to add some other functions.